Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a silent truth, a truth that few dare to admit. Intelligent men, truly sharp, self-aware, logical, and observant men often intimidate women, not because of aggression or arrogance, but because of depth. Not all women, but many, and here's why. An intelligent man sees through games, and that alone can make many people uncomfortable, especially in romantic dynamics. He's not just smart in the academic sense. He's observant, emotionally aware, and deeply analytical. When he interacts with someone, he listens not just to what's being said, but to what's being omitted. He picks up on inconsistencies between words and actions. If someone says they value honesty, but behaves in manipulative or evasive ways, he catches it quickly. That level of insight means that the usual tricks people use to maintain power in relationships, like playing hard to get, using jealousy to provoke attention, or alternating between affection and distance to keep someone hooked, simply don't work on him. He's not fooled by sweet talk when the energy behind it feels off. He doesn't romanticize potential, he analyzes patterns, and once he sees a pattern that signals manipulation or emotional immaturity, he doesn't argue, he detaches. This is deeply unsettling for someone who is used to controlling the emotional tempo of relationships. Many people, consciously or unconsciously, rely on certain behavioral strategies to gain the upper hand in attraction. Maybe it's acting aloof to appear high value. Maybe it's using mixed signals to keep someone guessing. But the intelligent man doesn't chase confusion. He doesn't feel compelled to decode every contradiction. He simply recognizes that clarity and consistency are more valuable. And this makes him immune to the very behaviors that keep others stuck in emotional loops. He doesn't confront manipulation with drama. He observes it, makes a decision, and quietly distances himself. This quiet power, this refusal to react in predictable ways, can feel threatening. It robs manipulative people of their usual tools. They can't provoke jealousy. They can't bait him into fights. They can't trigger emotional dependence. His presence demands authenticity, not because he forces it, but because anything less naturally falls apart around him. The truth is, intelligence, true emotional and psychological intelligence, is disruptive. It doesn't follow scripts. It exposes intentions. It reveals power dynamics. And that kind of presence either forces growth or pushes people away. For a woman who's still learning how to relate authentically, or who depends on emotional games for security, an intelligent man isn't just confusing, he's terrifying. Because she can't figure out how to control him. She can't place him into a familiar box. And she knows deep down that if she doesn't bring something real to the table, she'll lose his interest, not in anger, but in quiet indifference. That's the scariest part of all. An intelligent man values substance over surface, and that alone filters out a significant portion of people who are used to getting by on appearances alone. He's not blind to beauty. He might admire it, even be momentarily captivated by it. But physical attraction to him is only the opening scene, not the full story. He's looking for what lies beneath the surface, because what stimulates his mind is not just how someone looks, but how they think, how they speak, how they live, and what they value. He's not interested in someone who's mastered the art of external perfection, but has neglected internal growth. A pretty face might get his attention, but it won't hold it, not without character, depth, emotional intelligence, and the ability to have meaningful conversation. This presents a problem for women who are used to using their beauty as currency. When a woman has built her entire sense of self-worth around being admired physically, she often doesn't know how to respond when that admiration doesn't result in control. She may feel seen but not truly valued, and that can be unsettling. An intelligent man may compliment her beauty, but he won't be hypnotized by it. He won't bend his standards or his priorities just to keep her around. He observes how she treats people, how she handles conflict, how she speaks about others, what she does with her time, and how she behaves when she's not trying to impress anyone. These observations matter more to him than how well she takes a selfie or how many likes she gets online. He seeks alignment. He wants a partner who is intellectually engaging, emotionally grounded, and morally consistent. He notices if someone constantly changes opinions just to fit in, or if they repeat trendy phrases without understanding their meaning. He pays attention to whether someone is driven by purpose or by validation, and when he realizes that someone has nothing to offer beyond charm or physical appeal, he quietly withdraws. It's not arrogance, it's discernment. He has high standards, not because he thinks he's better than others, but because he knows exactly what kind of energy can help him grow and what kind will drain him. This focus on substance over surface also means that superficial gestures won't impress him. Flashy lifestyles, luxury for the sake of appearance, curated personas, they all fall flat in front of a man who values depth. He can tell when someone is living for external validation instead of internal fulfillment. And for women who are used to being rewarded for appearances alone, this can be incredibly intimidating. They realize that no amount of makeup, designer clothing, or seductive behavior can replace the absence of emotional maturity and intellectual depth. Around an intelligent man, they may feel exposed not because he judges them, but because his presence demands authenticity. He doesn't ask for it directly. He doesn't pressure. But the way he moves, the way he thinks, the way he engages, it naturally brings things to light. And this is why, in the presence of such a man, only a woman who has cultivated her inner world can feel secure, because she knows she has more to offer than what can be seen, and that's the kind of woman he's drawn to. But for others, his refusal to be seduced by surface-level appeal feels like rejection, not just of their beauty, but of the identity they've built around being beautiful. That's when fear sets in, because they begin to understand that they're being evaluated on something deeper, and they're not sure if they measure up. An intelligent man is emotionally independent, and that independence makes him incredibly difficult to control, manipulate, or destabilize. He doesn't need constant attention, reassurance, or approval to feel whole. He's already done the work, the inner work, to understand who he is, what he values, and what he wants from life. His sense of identity isn't built on how much someone else loves him, texts him, or validates him. He moves from a place of self-assurance, not ego, and that makes him unpredictable in the best way. He doesn't respond to guilt trips, silent treatment, or attention, seeking behavior the way many others might. Instead of chasing, he steps back. Instead of reacting emotionally, he observes and reflects. This kind of detachment is foreign to many women who are accustomed to being pursued relentlessly, even when they're distant, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. When they pull away, they expect the man to lean in. When they give breadcrumbs, they expect him to cling to the hope of more. But the emotionally independent man doesn't play that game. He doesn't beg for love, attention, or time. If someone pulls away, he lets them go, not out of bitterness but out of self-respect. His emotions are under his control, and his happiness doesn't hinge on anyone else's behavior. That's rare, and it's scary for anyone who relies on emotional dependence to keep someone tethered. Because he's not emotionally needy, he doesn't fall into common relationship traps. He won't tolerate being loved, bombed, and then discarded. He won't stay in a situation where he's being used as an emotional punching bag. And he won't remain in a connection where he has to constantly prove his worth. This lack of neediness doesn't come from coldness, it comes from strength. It comes from having built a solid foundation within himself. He can give love, support, and presence, but never from a place of desperation. He gives because he chooses to, not because he's afraid to lose someone. That distinction makes all the difference. What's even more unsettling to some is that he's comfortable being alone. He enjoys solitude. It's in his quiet moments that he reflects, grows, and sharpens his vision. He's not filling a void with women, dates, or temporary attention. He's not trying to escape himself through relationships. He's already at peace with who he is, which means any woman who enters his life is not a rescue mission or an emotional crutch. She's a partner, a complement, not a necessity, and that truth alone reshapes the dynamic entirely. To a woman who's used to being the center of a man's emotional world, this kind of man is confusing. She can't figure out why he isn't constantly checking in, why he doesn't spiral when she pulls away, why he doesn't respond to tests or jealousy tactics. The usual buttons don't work. The emotional levers she may have used with past partners are useless, and what's left is either the need to grow and meet him at his level or the impulse to walk away because the power dynamic isn't hers to control. His emotional independence is not only rare, it's disarming. It demands real connection, not games. It requires emotional maturity, not manipulation. And that makes many women, especially those who haven't yet faced their own emotional insecurities, feel deeply unprepared to handle him. An intelligent man challenges worldviews, not because he's argumentative, but because he thinks deeply and refuses to accept ideas at face value. He doesn't blindly follow social norms, cultural expectations, or emotional narratives. He questions things, everything from relationships and gender roles to politics, religion, psychology, and the nature of human behavior. His mind is wired to seek truth, to dissect patterns, and to test assumptions, even if it means arriving at unpopular conclusions. This ability to challenge ideas respectfully but firmly makes him both magnetic and intimidating. He doesn't just go along to get along. He isn't afraid to say, "I don't agree with that," even if it makes others uncomfortable. And when a woman is used to being validated for her opinions or applauded for saying the right things, being met with intellectual resistance can be jarring. He's not confrontational just for the sake of it. He's genuinely curious. He wants to know why someone believes what they believe. He listens not to confirm his own views, but to understand. But when he detects that someone is simply repeating what they've heard without having thought it through, or clinging to a belief just because it's socially accepted, he probes deeper. He may ask pointed questions. He may push someone to elaborate, and in doing so, he exposes whether their thoughts are truly their own or just borrowed ideas wrapped in emotional certainty. That's where discomfort begins, because he doesn't let things slide just to preserve the peace. He prefers truth over harmony, authenticity over comfort. For a woman who hasn't examined her own beliefs deeply, this can feel like a threat. not because he's aggressive, but because his presence forces introspection. He doesn't attack, but his questions reveal cracks. He doesn't insult, but his insight forces self-examination. And for someone who isn't ready to confront the roots of their world, that can feel destabilizing. When she says something that sounds good but lacks depth, he notices. When she relies on emotional arguments without logic, he notices. When she contradicts herself, even subtly, he notices. Not because he's trying to catch her in a trap, but because his mind naturally dissects contradictions and searches for coherence. This type of mental clarity makes surface-level conversations unbearable for him. He wants to explore complex topics. He wants to debate ideas without it becoming personal. He enjoys the dance of intellectual tension, where two people can disagree and still connect. But not everyone is built for that. Some people mistake disagreement for disrespect. Some mistake intensity for hostility. Some feel exposed when their beliefs are challenged, even gently. And for those people, an intelligent man becomes a source of anxiety rather than inspiration. What adds to the intimidation is that he doesn't just challenge others, he challenges himself. He evolves. He updates his thinking as he learns. He admits when he was wrong, but he doesn't abandon logic to avoid discomfort. That level of self-awareness makes it impossible for him to engage in performative conversations or shallow validation loops. He's not looking for someone who agrees with everything he says. He's looking for someone who can hold her own, who has her own thoughts, who can challenge him back with clarity and respect. But until a woman has reached that level of intellectual and emotional maturity, his presence can feel more like a spotlight than a connection. A spotlight that reveals how much internal work still needs to be done. And for many, that's too much to handle. An intelligent man doesn't tolerate drama, and that alone separates him from the average. He's not reactive, he's not drawn to chaos, and he's not emotionally entangled in situations that don't serve his peace. Drama, for many people, is a form of control, a way to test boundaries, assert dominance, or provoke emotional reactions that reaffirm importance. But when a woman tries to engage an intelligent man with emotional volatility, passive-aggressive behavior, or unnecessary arguments, she quickly learns that it doesn't work. He doesn't bite. He doesn't match the chaos with more chaos. He steps back, observes, and evaluates whether the situation even deserves his energy. This emotional discipline is deeply unsettling to someone who's used to emotional turbulence being the glue of a relationship. For some women, especially those who haven't yet developed emotional regulation, drama becomes the only language they know, the only way they can feel alive, connected, or significant. They confuse intensity with intimacy. They mistake emotional outbursts for passion, and when a man doesn't respond to that energy with the same level of chaos, they feel unseen, rejected, or powerless. But the intelligent man isn't holding, he's simply unwilling to abandon his peace for temporary emotional noise. He's not scared of emotions, in fact. He's capable of deep emotional connection, but he filters them through reason. He understands that love should not feel like a battlefield. That shouting, manipulating, withdrawing affection, or provoking jealousy are not signs of love. They're signs of insecurity, control, and unhealed trauma. And he won't participate in that. He knows that high-functioning relationships are built on calm communication, emotional honesty, and shared values, not emotional roller coasters and toxic cycles of makeup and breakup. When conflict arises, he addresses it directly, calmly and with intention. He doesn't escalate, he doesn't gaslight, and he doesn't play the victim. He takes accountability for his role and expects the same. But if the other person refuses to take responsibility or thrives on keeping the relationship in a constant state of emotional tension, he'll walk away not loudly, but decisively. His exit isn't dramatic. He doesn't need to make a scene or punish anyone. He simply removes himself because he knows peace is more valuable than proving a point or winning an argument. To a woman who associates love with conflict, this behavior feels foreign. She might interpret his calmness as coldness. She might think he doesn't care because he doesn't argue back. But what she's really witnessing is a man who has trained himself to avoid unnecessary suffering. A man who understands that emotional stability is not boring, it's powerful. He's not afraid of passionate connection, but he will never confuse chaos for love. And for women who haven't yet separated those two ideas, being with him can feel like being emotionally starved. Because he doesn't feed into the drama that they subconsciously believe proves someone cares. He sets boundaries, not ultimatums. He removes himself from toxic situations without needing to control the outcome. He doesn't need to change people. He simply chooses not to engage with patterns that compromise his peace. And this, more than anything, unnerves people who rely on emotional instability to feel in control. His refusal to engage in unnecessary conflict is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the kind of emotional discipline that can only come from experience, self-awareness, and a commitment to living with clarity. And for anyone who thrives on chaos, it's a reality check they weren't ready to face. An intelligent man often lives with purpose, and that purpose is usually bigger than any one relationship. He's not just living to find love, to get attention, or to feel validated by a woman's presence in his life. He has a mission, something personal, meaningful, and long-term that drives him every single day. Whether it's building a business, mastering a craft, contributing to a cause, or constantly evolving mentally and spiritually, his life has direction. That kind of focus makes him incredibly attractive, but also incredibly intimidating. Because it means he's not easily distracted. He doesn't center his entire existence around a woman, no matter how beautiful or charismatic she is. She might be important to him, but she will never be the center of his universe. His purpose is. This is difficult for many women to accept, especially those who are used to being a man's emotional priority, or who have grown up with the idea that a man should put her first, no matter what. But the intelligent man doesn't neglect a woman out of disregard. He simply understands that a relationship thrives when both people are independently whole and aligned with something greater than themselves. He doesn't seek to be consumed by love. He seeks to be inspired by it, and he expects the same from his partner. He wants someone who is also purpose-driven, who doesn't see the relationship as a destination, but as a partnership on a shared journey of growth. Because he lives with purpose, he's disciplined with his time and energy. He doesn't indulge in distractions, emotional drama, or meaningless pursuits. He's intentional about who he lets into his world, because his time is valuable not in a narcissistic way, but because he's aware of what's at stake if he deviates from his path. He may spend hours working alone, reflecting, building, or creating. And during those moments, he's not texting constantly, he's not always available, and he's not adjusting his focus every time someone demands attention. This can be mistaken for emotional unavailability, but in reality, it's a sign of deep masculine strength. He knows how to prioritize, and he refuses to dilute his vision for temporary comfort. For a woman who expects constant emotional attention and availability, this can feel like neglect. She might interpret his focus as indifference, when in truth, it's the opposite. His ability to stay grounded in his mission is what makes him a stable partner in the long run. He's not chasing every emotional impulse. He's building something. He's investing in his legacy, his values, and his future. And he wants a partner who adds to that, not someone who competes with it or constantly needs to be reassured of her place in his life. A woman who doesn't understand the depth of masculine purpose may feel insecure around him, not because he's doing anything wrong, but because his energy is not directed toward constant validation. It's directed toward impact, mastery, and meaning. This kind of man can't be seduced by convenience or beauty alone. He looks for alignment. He asks, does this person support my vision? Do they bring peace or distraction? Are they rooted in their own purpose, or are they looking for me to become theirs? These questions guide who he connects with and who he walks away from. He's not impressed by superficial compatibility. He's not swayed by emotional highs if they come with long-term chaos. He's focused on sustainability emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that level of long-term thinking, that refusal to be led by temporary feelings, is exactly what separates him from the average man. It also makes him harder to love in the traditional sense, because loving him means accepting that you will never be the center of his world, but you can be a powerful force within it, if you understand and respect the fire that fuels his life. And this is where the truth settles in. Intelligent men are not intimidating because they are cold, arrogant, or unreachable. They are intimidating because they force depth into a world obsessed with the surface. They hold up a mirror not just to others, but to the very nature of modern connection. They don't chase, they don't entertain chaos, and they don't shrink themselves to make others comfortable. Their presence demands growth. Their love requires substance, and their lives are guided by a compass that points to purpose, not validation. Only a woman who is equally grounded, emotionally mature, and purpose-driven will feel at home in his world. Because to be with an intelligent man is not to control him, but to evolve beside him. And that is something not every woman is ready for.